All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, well, here we are together again for more digital marketing. We're going to talk about Google today. Google is really at the epicenter of search marketing. And has anyone in here had any training on how Google actually works, or any explanation?
I've heard that from you a couple times.
A couple times just from me, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, well, a little bit of training and then also from the textbook.
Does this class get moved 2 times or something?
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
We'll stick right to the content, and we'll get to administrative matters a little later. But yeah, I got to explain to you how Google actually works so that you have a better understanding of how people can find your products and services online. So if you could visualize Google, if it were a thing you could touch and see and hold, what would it look like? If it were an object, creature.
You just call it a spider or something.
Yeah, it would be a spider. Google is essentially a program that indexes the web. And this is an index that you all may be familiar with. This is what you would find in a book that tells you where to find information. So what Google does, if you could look behind the screen, you would see a program called a bot or a spider that actually crawls web pages, collects data from it, information, and then populates it into an index. And that's called indexing a site. So that's essentially what Google does, is it crawls the web with this bot or spider that goes around to website after website after website all over the web, constantly. It never sleeps. And it's collecting this information. So what happens then is it all gets put into the Google index, and then when you go on to search for something on google.com and you put it in, it retrieves it from that index, and then it displays those results to you in something called the Search Engine Results page, or SERP. So we'll begin there. This is an important term to understand. The Search Engine Results page takes that information that you're searching for, like this. So let's put in something like golf clubs. For sale, something like this, right? This is the search engine's results page. Search engine results page. Or SERP for short. Okay. So what Google is doing behind the screen as you're typing in these keywords here, it's already beginning that search. It's already going through its index. And then by the time you hit the enter key, it has already put together these results to display to you on the page. Now, I want to dissect what the SERP looks like. Okay? Google has gone through many different phases of this, many different presentations. In the old days, it was pretty much just text, right? And then we started to see little ads that came up in here, and sometimes they were displayed over here on the right. Do you remember those days? Where they had all the ads over here, right? And there would be, 5 of them or whatever on the side. And now what they do is they take these ads and they actually just sort of inject them directly into the results page. You can tell these are ads because, look, it says sponsored right here. Okay. So I'm going to introduce to you 2 different topics here that are of vital importance to your understanding of digital marketing. You have a combination of sponsored results that your business would pay for when someone clicks on them. Those are sponsored. And I'll teach you how to do that through a process called AdWords. And then you have the organic listings, which come a little bit further down now. As of the time of this presentation, you have what we have down here. These are called organic listings. Okay? So this area of the page here, these are called organic results. It is extremely important to understand the difference. This point that I'm making right now is going to be of critical importance to us as we move forward through the rest of the class. So you got to understand the difference between an organic ranking and a sponsored ranking. Okay? So organic results, in contrast to the sponsor ones, organic results, your business does not pay when someone clicks on it. Your business does not pay when someone clicks on an organic listing. If this says ad next to it, which is what they do now, they have a little box that looks like this that says ad on some of these, which I'll show you in a moment. Those are what we call sponsored listings that you'll learn through Google AdWords. And when someone clicks on that, your business would either pay per click or pay per 1,000 impressions, and we'll talk about all that later. But that's kind of the 4-minute version of what Google does and how it presents that information.
So the non-organic above, which is sponsored in the ad, they're almost the same thing, or they are the same thing?
I'm going to use the terms equivalently.
Okay.
All the ads are sponsored. Okay? So the business pays to run that ad, therefore they're sponsoring it to be there. Okay? Now they do that in one of two ways. They do it by three now. They do it by pay-per-click, meaning that when the customer or prospective customer, the user, clicks on the ad, then they pay per the click. And then the other way is they pay for every 1,000 times the ad is shown. And then the third way is they have a pay-per-conversion, which is an advanced topic that we may get to far later in the course. And just to recap for those that are just now coming in, that we have two different types of result listings on the search engine result page. We have organic and we have sponsored. The way that we gain ranking organically is in a process called search engine optimization, or SEO. And what SEO, I'm going to oversimplify it just because this is an introductory course, is essentially it means getting to the top of Google. Go to the top of Google. Okay, that's a super oversimplification, but that's basically what it does, is you will calibrate your website, you'll optimize it, such that when Google indexes it with the spider, it puts that information into the index, and then when someone searches for your keyword or your business, whatever your offering is, that your ranking is higher. That's the process of search engine optimization.
Yeah, getting first in line.
Yeah, it's a real estate game. So now I'm going to start erasing some of this from the board because it's starting to get kind of messy up here. Okay. Now, Google is a real estate game. Everybody and their brother and sister, cousin, whatever, every business, every manager, every marketer, they all want to be at the top of Google. It's very competitive. It's ferocious. Absolutely savage to get there. And businesses will pay a fortune to be there. So if you know this and you're really good at this, you can make a very good living. Very good living, optimizing websites to be at the top. But here's the catch. Google is kind of like Coca-Cola. They don't publish their formula.
Don't they change it all the time?
And they change it constantly. Which also means job security if you're really adept at optimizing. Because you're always going to have new things to optimize, right? But the bottom line is you can't call Google in Mountain View, California. You can't call Google customer service and tell them, hey, could you please move me up to the top? Excuse me. I'm number 3. Hey, how do I get up to number 1? Google won't tell you that. You can't just, write them a letter and say, excuse me, please, I think that I should be in top position, right? They're going to laugh at you. because that's not how it works. The bot, the program that indexes these, has its own formula called an algorithm that it goes through, and it takes different things from your website, and then it uses that to create a quality score that will provide the most relevant results for what the user is searching for. So that's the Google experience, is that over time it's gotten better and better at even anticipating what you're looking for before you even finish typing it. You've seen this, right? You start to type something in Google and it finishes it for you. That's powerful, isn't it? That's how advanced this technology has gotten, and it will get even more advanced over
So
time.
isn't it kind of a psychology game?
What do you mean by a psychology game?
Meaning that you have to understand what you're, beyond the algorithms, for it, as an optimizer, you have to know what things are related so that you can push them up?
Yeah, you do. You have to.
In your keywords and things?
Yeah, you do. You have to have a grasp of how relevant the content displayed on your website is to the user's search query. That has to be aligned. If the content is not aligned with the query, with what they type in here, then the quality score suffers. Understandably so, because Google wants to send people to the pages that have the content that they're really looking for. If you go back in time, like back into the 90s and early 2000s, there were all kinds of little games people played with websites. Do you remember when all that was going on? Where you'd click on something, you thought you were going to the whitehouse.org, and you'd go to some very inappropriate or nasty type of website? Yeah, that was going on. A lot of that was going on. That was a big problem, right?
Because you bought the domain name, you can do whatever you want.
Right,
And
right.
they're holding them hostage and selling them.
All kinds of, it was the Wild West back then. And the algorithm, basically, Google in its primitive days, and same with Yahoo and all those other ones, in their primitive days, all they did when they indexed a web page, when the little spider started crawling it, all it did was look for keywords. And it just made the index based on the keywords. So what people would do on their website is they would go, let's go to Callaway like this, right? I'm going to do this live. I've never been to this website before. I'm going to do it live for you right now. What they used to do in the old days is in the white space, in HTML, they would actually keyword stuff. And this is what we call a black hat, or a kind of a nefarious optimization technique. It's called keyword stuffing. And what they would do is, in white, they would put in more keywords here, but you couldn't see them. Right? They would put in stuff here like, golf. They'd put in Callaway. They'd put in like maybe, cheap club. And then what would happen was they would write all this in white, so you couldn't see it. But when the bot crawled it, it would catch it. That was in the old days. So another advanced iteration of the Google algorithm is that it actually penalizes websites now for doing this. So it recognizes when keyword stuffing is going on, and it will actually reduce the ranking. Okay, so that's one example of how the algorithm, we have to get comfortable with the terminology. The algorithm is the formula, right? Has changed because the way that people have tried to game the system has led to that change. Right? And then also because Google wants to give you a more relevant experience. So it's kind of two things happening at the same time. You follow me? All right, so we're doing this live, right? So I clicked on that organic listing for Golf Galaxy, okay? Now, I typed in golf club. That was golf club for sale. That was my query. We've got to get comfortable with that language. Query is the search, right? So the query was for golf club for sale. I got the search engine results page. That's where I got all of this. Okay? This is called the SERP. Here. Then I clicked on this. Now this is called the landing page. Okay? So I'm going to show you the pathway. The pathway goes from the query. Then the next stage is the SERP. And then the third stage is the landing page. So this is what we call the search sequence. Okay? So that's kind of the process from the user's point of view. Now, the bulk of today's presentation is going to be about the search engine and the algorithm and getting to the top of Google one way or another. But in the back of your mind, I want you to think of something, and I want you to hold on to this thought. Like I say, my class is like marinating a steak, right? You're going to let this idea marinate for a minute, okay? Is it better, by better I mean less expensive and a higher return on your investment, to optimize your website to try and get to the top of Google organically? Okay? Is it more cost effective to get here organically or to pay? Now just hold on to that. We're going to think about that for a minute. In years past, I've let everyone answer that question off the cuff, and I get all kinds of different answers. So let's just hold on to that for a minute. Question is it more cost effective to pay or optimize? Right? Is it more cost effective to just run an ad so that you just pay per click, or to try and hire someone or spend your time trying to optimize your website so you get there naturally? Does everybody understand the question? That's the central question. Okay? So think about it for a minute. I'm going to move on to the next idea here. Okay? So if we could visualize what the bot looks like, right? This is kind of what the algorithm would look like. Right? As it's going along the web page. Now, what you got to have a basic understanding of is when you're marketing, when you're running a business or you're working in a marketing department, you're going to be changing your website all the time. As you get new inventory, you have new products, new services, your website will change, right? But this bot, this thing is crawling all the time, and you don't know when it's coming. You don't know, Google doesn't send you an email and say, hey, we're going to index your site tomorrow at 2, right? They don't do that. It just goes and does it. So now let me ask you a question. Let's say you're tinkering around with your website, and this thing starts crawling your website, and it goes to one of your links. And then the link doesn't work. What's going to happen to your rank? Is it going to go up or down? Down, right? So let me put that up for you, right? Broken links lead to a drop in ranking. And I'll put may in parentheses because I'll explain why in just a minute. So you have to keep this in mind when you're changing your website around. If you're putting in new pages, you're taking pages out, you're modifying it or whatnot, if you don't tell this thing to not go there, and it does go there, and it goes to a broken link, you get penalized for that. So what you have to do is you have to create something called nofollow. And nofollow is a direction that you give to the bot to tell it not to go somewhere on your website. Okay? Telling it where not to go can be just as important as telling it where to go. Nofollow is to tell the bot or spider which pages to avoid. And you put that in a file called robots.txt, and we'll get into that in a more advanced lecture. I just want to introduce the idea to you right now, because how many of you have clicked on a link to something and you get something called this? It's called a 404 not found.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
images, right? This is a 404 page not found error,
Yeah.
right?
Or no
That's what
longer
happens
available.
if one of your pages is not found. So if Google is indexing you, see, here's an even, right? If Google is indexing your web page and you have a link that goes to this, it's not happy. It doesn't like that at all. It penalizes you for that. So it's very important to be in good communication. That's why marketing and IT need to be in constant communication with each other, because if someone's tinkering around with it and the spider goes there, then you could get penalized. Does everybody get the point with that? Right? So it's something to remain mindful of, that can penalize you. Let's move on to the next idea. The whole process that we're talking about now is called search engine marketing. Okay? I have just introduced to you in 20 minutes or so search engine marketing. So that's it in a nutshell, is the process of getting your website, your products and services to be visible on the search engine. Question in the back.
Regarding the do not follow link, would it be possible to create a page with like keyword stuffing and tell the bot not to look at that page?
Why would you want to do that?
Wouldn't it lead more traffic to your website?
No, what will happen with the keyword stuffing is that the algorithm has gotten so sophisticated that it just recognizes it whenever. The best way to get your website to the top is to publish genuine content that is aligned with the keywords. That's the best way to do it. I do not recommend doing any of the black hat techniques like keyword stuffing and whatnot. It'll usually do more harm than help. Now, later on in the class, I'm going to tell you about the difference between black hat and white hat search engine optimization techniques. So more on that in a minute. But this whole process that I've gone over is called search engine marketing. And in a nutshell, it's trying to get your products, services, keywords, your offerings, your website up to the top of the search engine. Okay? So that's our vocabulary. And then the robots.txt file, that's the file that tells the bot what to index. And when we get into the website development portion of the class, we'll talk about this in more detail. Okay, so on to search engine optimization. Okay.